Hello everyone and welcome to Beginner's Code, a place for you to learn with me as I dive deep into the coding world. Now before I start, if you want to learn a little more, please check out my website, my Instagram or my GitHub for projects. The links for these will all be in the descriptions below, so please feel free. Also don't forget to subscribe to see more videos from me as I teach you through the basics. Today we will be looking at creating a simple toggle that when clicked changes the colour. We can actually add further to this and we can use JavaScript so that when the text box is changed, the whole background colour changes with it. Okay, so to start with, I have opened a directory within Visual Studio Code, and what I'm going to do is just create a new file. And this will be called index.html, and then I'll create my main.css file. And just in the index.html, all we need to do is just add a simple HTML document. I've just used the Emmet plugin to actually shorthand this, so all I did was type in HTML:5 and then press tab, and it outputs all of this for you. So what we'll do is we'll just change the title to toggle, and then we need to create a div that has the class of check, and then an input which has the type of checkbox. And this is actually all we need to do for our HTML file. That's a lie, no we don't. We need to add in the main.css file. So we are linking the style sheet using the href with the location, so main.css. That's because it's located in the same folder. If it was located in an external folder, then we would need to add in the full file path. So now we can actually get started with our main.css. And what I'm going to do first of all is just open the index.html with Google Chrome. So what you'll see here is we have a checkbox that we can easily click, but it doesn't really look that appealing. So what we're going to do is just create one that actually looks more like a toggle switch, which you might have come across quite often when you're using certain like dark modes or something like that, or even iOS apps. A lot of them have toggles on them. So what we're going to do is actually this will be created to a certain pixel so that it will look bigger on the screen, which is perfect for this kind of example so that you can see what is happening. But we actually will only really use them relatively small when it's actually on a web page, because otherwise it will take up way too much room. So to start, we're just going to give the body a little bit of a style. And we're going to reset the margin and the border. I'm just going to realign that. So we're giving the margin and the border a value of 0, and that will just push it all back to the start. So that will realign the browser just like that. Next, we will use the flexbox and justify content to the center, and just align items to the center. And then if we give the background a color of an orange, so CC692A, and then we'll use the height of 1080 pixels, and that will just make it fill the whole background. So now we have a very simple checkbox that is centered in the middle, and I can actually move around it, which is perfect. So yeah, we can still use the checkbox just like normal. Okay, so next we are going to actually style the div that the checkbox is located in. So to do this, we use the .check, which is the class name. So the dot just represents class. So .check display flex, and then justify content space between, and then align items center, and we'll just give a margin of 400 pixels and 120 pixels. And that doesn't actually do anything as of now, but it will do in a sec. So next we will use the input style to style, well, we'll use the input to style what it looks like. And we can actually grab a specific input by passing in square brackets and then the type. So we could have two different inputs, one that's a text and one that's a checkbox. And because we have specifically said which one we want, the checkbox would only be the one that we're actually styling with this code. So to make that seem a little bit more visual, we can do input and then type is equal to checkbox, and then open and close the angled brackets or the curly braces. And then inside of this we can do position relative, and then width 500, and then height 140 pixels. So now if I come back over, we now have a big old checkbox that doesn't really look that good. But we can now actually get rid of the WebKit. So this is actually something that comes built into the majority of HTML tags. So there is an appearance that they come with. So WebKit-appearance, and we'll just pass in none. And then we'll give it a background color of HSL, which will take in 230, 22% and 74%. So it's a little bit of a grey colour. And now you'll see we have this wide box, which we can still click on, but there isn't actually anything to say that it's been checked. So next we're just going to give the outline a style of none, and that will just remove any styling that there was. And then we'll give the border radius of 70 pixels. And we now have this kind of circular edge to it, which is the kind of look that we were going for. And you'll notice when I click on it now, there isn't actually a border that comes up, and that's because we've said none. Next, we want to give it a little transition, and that's because when we click on it, we want the circle to slide over, and if we give it a transition, it will slowly slide over rather than just jump. So 0.5 seconds, and then we just want to give it a little shadow, and this will actually be an inset. So this will give the shadow to the inside of the actual checkbox. So if I come back over, you'll see the shadow will appear inside of this rather than outside. So inset 0.05 pixels, and then if we use RGBA, and we'll pass in black, but we will give it 0.2 for the alpha, which will make it slightly less visible, well, not less visible, but it will make it harder to work out. So if you'll see here, you can just about see it, and it just kind of gives it a little bit of definition. If I was to make this, say, 0.8, and then you'll see here it's actually a lot more defined, and it does look a lot sharper. So I might actually change this to, say, 0.5, just to make it somewhere in between. Okay, so now we need to actually work on the check. So once it has been clicked, we need to make something happen. And to do this, we can actually, the input comes with a checked pseudo class. So just like we can do with links, we can have active, we can do hover, things like that. With the input, we can actually do checked. And this will, when it is checked, will change the color. So it basically allows us to use JavaScript, but without using JavaScript. So input and then colon checked, and we will pass in the type again, just to make sure. Obviously this doesn't need to be done on ours because there is only one checkbox, but it's always good to make sure. And then background, and we will pass in a kind of bluey color, So 03, A9, and then F4. And now if I run back here and then press it, you'll see it changes the colour on a slow transition, which is quite nice. But we now need to give it a look before and a look after. And this will actually allow us to put in a little circle. So what we're going to do is just use the input and pass in checkbox again. Oh, that's meant to be an equals, my bad. And then we're going to use a colon and pass in before. So this is before it's been checked. We'll give it a content of just an empty string, and that will basically allow us to use put our own content onto it. And we'll give it a position of absolute, and then a width of 120 pixels, and then a height of 120 pixels, border radius of 80 pixels, and then actually if I save that and head over here, we'll see what it looks like. So if I refresh that, it doesn't actually show. That might be because we actually need to, right, so if we now give it a top of 10 pixels and then a left of 12 pixels and a background of white, we now have it here. So we have this kind of white looking circle, which is 120 pixels in width and 120 pixels in height, but it's also 10 pixels from the left and 10 pixels from the top and 12 from the left. So now if I click this, we actually want to animate this so that it moves over to there, which we can do. So now if we add a transition of 0.5 seconds, and then we can use transform and then scale 1 to 1, so that will be 1.1. So we're actually going to scale it by timesing it by 1.1. Oh, I didn't mean to do that. So if I reload it, we actually don't see much of a change, which is perfect. But then box shadow will give 0, 2 pixels, 5 pixels, and then we'll give it a black again, which will take in exactly the same parameters. So it'll be 0.5 of opacity. And then if I run this, you'll see it's kind of shaded a lot more down there. And finally, just to move it over, we put here that the left was 12 pixels, but we can now add to the 12 pixels. So if I do input and then checked, so this is once it has been checked, we're using the checkbox type, and then we're just going to use before as well. So this is once it's been checked before it's been checked again. So left 368 pixels, and if I save that, and then if we click it, it now moves directly to the edge. And it's actually quite a smooth transition, which is perfect. That's all for today's video. Hopefully this has helped your understanding on how we can use CSS to create some animations and make our websites more interactive. If there's anything you'd like me to cover further, please don't hesitate in reaching out to me by dropping a comment below on Instagram or through my website. Stay tuned, as in my next video I will be looking at functions part 3, and we will take a look at some examples. If you liked what we've been through today and you want to learn more, please drop a like and subscribe to my channel to keep up to date. Thank you, and see you next time.